If you've been wondering, why does it feel like everything is getting worse? I want to use the example of airlines, the rise of.
We're not poor. At least that's what we keep telling ourselves. We work, we pay the rent, we pay the mortgage. In my previous post about Little Meech, I said that I know too much about finances. I'm able to recognize.
Where did America's affordability crisis come from? I think the natural answer is to point to the most.
Because being middle class is the hardest fucking shit. You literally can't get no fucking help.
The American middle class is disappearing.
My entire salary goes to bills, so let's see where it's going. I pay $2,440 every month for rent. My utilities are made up of.
So y'all mean to tell me y'all be scared to pay y'all bills late? Shit, not me. Baby, I know for.
In the next 30 minutes, you're gonna hear Americans going through the same problem. Rent is high, grocery costs more, the paycheck disappeared fast than ever. And this is what the cost of living crisis looks like in real life, and people are feeling it. And you have to drop your comment below how you've been maneuvering in the cost of living crisis. If your life is good or you have some technique that people don't know, drop it in the comment. Let us know what's your situation. And if you are new here, do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Okay? All right, let's check out this video.
In my previous post about Little Meech, I said that I know too much about finances. I'm able to recognize someone that's broke versus someone that actually has money. Somebody was like, how, girl, I need you to do a series. So instead of a series, let me just give you like 4 or 5 things that I know that lets me know your ass is broke. Thing number 1, I would say, is somebody who is super flashy. People that make a lot of money, yes, they can be flashy. If you are a regular, normal person with a 9-to-5 job, and let's say you might make $150,000 a year, bitch, why you got 2 or 3 car payments? That shit don't make no fucking sense. A lot of times people live these lives that are like curated, for certain styles or whatever. And it don't make sense. They never down, they always up, no matter what. Most of the reason why I know people don't have money is because when I open their credit reports, it's riddled with high interest credit card debt. Yes, they may have a wonderful income, but their income met with debt makes no sense. It cancels each other out. So yeah, you can have the income and still be broke at the same time. And a lot of times people just swiping their card the last 8 to 10 days of the month just to make it to the next month. So people that's always using their credit cards, very broke. Don't let them razzle dazzle you about their bullshit with them points. A lot of times people try to overcompensate their lives with like status symbols. Like a status symbol could be like somebody that has Louis Vuitton, right? But they don't have leather Louis Vuitton. They have like entry level Louis Vuitton. And then they don't realize that coated canvas is not leather. And especially when they do stuff that's unprompted, like voluntarily saying, I got this $7,000 Chanel bag. What that got to do with anything? We sitting here talking about Chris Brown tickets. Why are you telling us that you gonna bring your $7,000 Chanel bag to the Chris Brown? Girl, if you don't get your line ass. And then like last thing I would say, people that have a lot of money, a lot of income, flashy clothes, but they still don't have no assets. So like, why do you got this job over there at Duke Power, Duke Energy, but you ain't got no 401k? Like, why do you live in a high-rise apartment in Buckhead, but you don't own no type of real estate and you 45 years old? Why do you still drive an entry-level Mercedes and you done been driving an entry-level Mercedes and entry-level BMW since we graduated college in 2005? Like, these are dead giveaways that people don't have actual sustainable assets that grow over time. It's all surface level. Everything about them is surface level. There's nothing deep that goes past the 30th of the month. And an honorable mention is anytime you hear somebody talk about you shouldn't be pocket watching and why you watching my pockets and why you watching it, so baby, that is the line for I spend money irresponsibly and I don't want you looking deep into it because I ain't really got it and I don't want you to know.
Because being middle class is the hardest fucking shit. You literally can't get no fucking help.
The American middle class is disappearing and they don't want you to know about it. So the poverty line is a national metric and it does not take into consideration your geographic living area, which means that the poverty line is the same in California as it is in West Virginia. To calculate poverty, the United Census Bureau is basically using an estimate of a bare minimum food plan from the U.S. Department of Ag and comparing it to a family's income. Government estimates that food is 1/3 of an average family's expenses. Therefore, if a family makes less than 3 times that number, they are considered in poverty. Though food is incredibly essential, so many things have changed since the 1960s that aren't taken into account in this calculation, as remarked by so many experts. These things include housing, transportation, childcare, medical costs. All of these things vary so significantly based on where you live in the US. If they updated the calculations, then a lot more people would qualify for help.
My entire salary goes to bills, so let's see where it's going. I pay $2,440 every month for rent. My utilities are made up of my electric and gas, with electric being $150 and gas being $26, bringing the grand total to $176 for utilities. I pay $135 a month for car insurance. Childcare is $250 a month. My subscriptions, which many people think I should have none, are $10 for Google, $8 for Netflix, $10 for my Ring cameras, and $3 for Rocket Money, bringing the grand total to $31. In my other category, I pay $60 for internet, $20 for my phone, and $40 for the gym. And now we start getting into the debts. I have 4 different loans I'm paying off. I have an Affirm loan for $142, and this is my last Affirm loan. My Avent loan is $202 a month. My School's First loan is $235 a month, and my Zable loan is $138 a month. Now we have my credit cards. I have 10 in total, but I do not owe a payment on all of them this month. My Amex card is $279. My Apple card is $0. My Chase card $571. My Citibank card $179. My Credit One card $0. My Discover card $407. My Macy's card $0. My Merit card $0. My Milestone card $0. And my Wells Fargo card $56, bringing the grand total for my credit cards to $1,492 and the total for my bills to $5,361. My take-home pay for my 9 to 5 is about $5,250 a month, give or take $100. So for the most part, my entire salary goes towards my bills.
So y'all mean to tell me y'all be scared to pay y'all bills late? Shit, not me. Baby, I know for a fact when it comes to that light bill, water bill, gas bill, phone bill, I think that's about it. You can pay them up to 59 days late. Now, when it comes to car insurance, that's about the only bill that I'm going to pay on time. I don't give a fuck if I got to use an ACH payment. If I ain't got it Friday and it's due Friday and I know I'm going to get paid Monday, yeah, I'm going to pay it Friday and the money will come out Monday. But not for real, what y'all be scared of? Because the most they can do is make you pay a $5 or $10 late fee. And I ain't gonna lie, if I ain't got it, I just don't fucking have it. So you mean to tell me, if my light bill costs $150 and it's due on the 1st, and you allow me to make a late payment and say, oh, I'm gonna let you keep your lights on, but you gotta pay me an extra $10, I'ma do it. But make sure you don't pay it that 59 days, or your lights might be out. And y'all can even call them and be like, I'm going through a hardship right now, I really don't have the funds. They might extend your light bill a little bit more. Stop being afraid to call these people. Everybody struggling here, they might be struggling too.
I would love your advice because I just feel like my paycheck is not going as far as it used to. And if you don't know me, I have paid off about $25,000, a little bit more than that in credit card debt. I feel like right now in this moment, I'm struggling to just keep up and work my way into some kind of like savings. I noticed that at the grocery store, I'm spending more money, even at Aldi's and all the things I do to cut out money or spending money at places. Aldi's is now really expensive. I'm not shopping as much as I used to, of course, with paying off the debt. That was one of the things I cut. If I really need something, for example, I got this thrifted for like the other day and it's Ralph Lauren, so I felt really good about that. But It's just like my electricity, my gas, my food, it's just all going up. Maybe there's something I don't know, but do you have anything that is a good way to save money or to just like negotiate things down more? I don't really know what to do at this point.
The 400 richest Americans are now worth a record $6.6 trillion. The entire bottom half of America, 170 million people, is worth just $4.2 trillion. Our problem isn't a lack of resources. Our problem is ever expanding inequality.
75%, 3 in 4 of American adults will experience at least a year or more earning near, at, or below the poverty line in their lifetime between the ages of 20 and 75. Poverty has been effectively othered. Poor people who are experiencing poverty have been very effectively othered in the US, to the point where people identify more with those in power and those who have money, who are billionaires, than they do with the people they are more likely to become, which is someone who experiences poverty in their lifetime. I think this also speaks to how effectively poverty has become something that is viewed as immoral or a personal failing, right? That's why we want to other it. We want to push it away because we understand it's dangerous and scary, but also and threatening. And we also understand that we will be judged for being poor, that people will view us as lazy, as immoral, as bad, as wastes of time, lives. I don't know. But we won't be viewed as human, right? And I think this is where our personal choice comes in, right? Do we choose to participate in the othering of poverty as an experience when we are very likely to have already experienced it or to experience it at some time in our life, right? Are we going to other and reject and refuse assistance or even judge them for needing help, using benefits that are rightfully theirs as a citizen that they've paid into and will pay into their whole lives? Like, we do get to decide whether we're going to participate in others and our own dehumanization by perpetuating these othering and frankly disgusting and shame-based ideas about poverty, or whether we're going to rehumanize ourselves and each other and show up for each other.
Our country is going to have a revolution to fix it. It's not going to fix itself. The government has everybody fighting everybody. The left fights the right. And you bring most people together, they want the same exact thing. Most people. Yeah. Very few people don't. They will fight about it because the government teaches us to fight about it. So white people and black people and Mexican people and Asian people, we all got to hate each other according to the government. Right. Everybody hates everybody. I don't hate anybody. That's got nothing to do with it. And the people I know don't hate anybody either. It's just the government telling you. And what they do is they take the lowest income people and they're able to create the hate in those people because those people are so busy doing nothing that they can dwell and sit in that funk that makes them negative people. And the other people that go out and work every day, we ain't got time for that stuff. I ain't got time to sit and worry about hating Nick. I ain't got time for that crap. I just need to go out and make a living. I ain't gonna make some money. I need to feed my family. I need to save up for my kids. I need to prepare for what's coming in the future. I don't have time to worry about hating everybody. I just need to get by. Who we all should hate is the government. Absolutely, absolutely.
You have been indoctrinated by wealthy people and by the politicians whose only job is to protect the wealth of wealthy people. You look at billionaires and think, wow, look at that guy living the American dream. He must have worked really hard. And then you look at the poor people as lazy. No one can work hard enough to earn $1 billion. And there might be some really awesome countries where it is easy to get out of poverty. But I'm not sure where you came up with this because the US is not one of them. Out of the 31 economically comparable countries, the US comes in 27th place in social mobility, meaning that the US makes it more difficult to get out of poverty than almost every other country. Here you're bragging about making 6 figures and someone asks you, do you understand the difference between 6 figures and 10 figures? And you said, don't care, which obviously means you don't know, so allow me to enlighten you. If you were to count to 100,000 without taking any breaks, one number per second, it would take a little over a day. 1 million, it would take 11 days. If you were to count to 1 billion, it would take 32 years. If you wanted to keep on counting until you reached Elon Musk's net worth, it would take you over 8,000 years. If you make $100,000 a year and pay 20% taxes on that, that's significant to you. Elon Musk could pay 80% and he wouldn't even notice it. His lifestyle wouldn't change a single bit, and his descendants for the next 1,000 years would still be rich. So while you're over here advocating for the wealthy to pay the same tax rate as us, They're buying Twitter out of boredom, building rockets for fun, and laughing at you. But don't worry, they're never going to laugh to your face, because without people like you, they wouldn't be where they are. One more thing, and if this doesn't blow your mind, then you are just too far gone. Are you aware that our GDP is about 5 times higher than China's? And yet they are over there making commercials. They have commercials on TV about donating $1 a day to help feed hungry American children. Why? Because the rate of hungry people in this country is also 5 times higher than China's. How does that happen, you ask? Because of income inequality. In the last 40 years, the number of wealthy people has gone up, the number of poor people has gone up. The only one that's gone down is the middle class. You think that trend is just going to stop? It will keep growing until there is just rich people and poor people. Are you really foolish enough to think that you'll be on the wealthy side? I think you are. And I also think that deep down, you believe you can identify with billionaires better than you can identify with poor people. You made it very clear that you don't care. If you had just a little bit of common sense, you would.
What would you say is the biggest difference that separates the middle class from the wealthy?
Unfortunately, a lot of people in the middle class got stuck there. And in America today, it's my opinion that you're almost better off being really poor than middle class, because there's a lot of benefits for the poor and the rich have all the privilege. The middle class kind of gets stuck there where they're not getting the free college for their kids or the free tuition, and they're not getting financial aid, and it's hard for them. But they kind of got stuck there because a lot of them were taught when you're very young that, listen, you're young, you go to school, you get a good job, you save money, you buy a house, you pay the house off, and then you retire with the pension. And that just didn't happen. And I think your generations figured that out, but my generation was sold a different story, and my parents' generation for sure. So the middle class kind of got stuck into that belief, and now a lot of them are in their 60s and 70s, and they're sitting there with no money, no resources, a Social Security, which is anemic, and they're saying, oh my God, what did I do? So it's upon the young generation now to see this and know that's not going to work. So what used to work 100 years ago doesn't work today. You need to take responsibility for yourself.
And so gaslighting the people and trying to tell them that prices have come down is not helping. It's actually infuriating people, because people know what they're paying at the grocery store. They know what they're paying for their kids' clothes and school supplies. They know what they're paying for their electricity bills. And so that approach does not work. We need compassion and show that we care about the American people, and show that we are in the trenches with them on what they're going through. That's first and foremost. You don't gaslight them, you don't lecture them, and you don't deny what's happening.
Hi there. Let's talk about this number right here. This is how much debt I have. I'm about $180,000 in debt from both federal and private student loans, my car loan, credit cards. That is all of my debt. I am 24 years old. I have a bachelor degree, so not even a master's. I have one minor, no focus in my major, as well as an honors degree, which did require some extra credits. So that is where this number is coming from. This is on top of the little amount of scholarships that I was awarded, so money I didn't have to pay back.
We're not poor. At least that's what we keep telling ourselves. We work, we pay the rent, we pay the mortgage, we pay the childcare, we fill the car, we fill the fridge, or at least we try to. We got the pay rise, then the food went up. We worked the overtime, then the energy bill landed. So we changed supermarkets, we cancelled subscriptions, we took our lunch to work, we used the loyalty cards, we did all the things we were told to do. And somehow there's still less left. We earn too much for help, but apparently not enough to stop thinking about money, not enough to stop checking the bank before saying yes, not enough to stop doing the little calculation every time the kids ask, can we? And maybe that's the bit we don't talk about enough, because we're working, we're earning, we're trying. We haven't suddenly become terrible with money. Life has just started costing more. And that's why I called this page, We're Not Poor Yet. Because so many of us aren't poor, but we don't feel comfortable either. We're somewhere in the middle, working, paying, juggling, trying to get that little bit of breathing room. We're not poor yet. The numbers changed.
If you've been wondering, why does it feel like everything is getting worse? I want to use the example of airlines, the rise of premium economy, and the idea of marginal luxury. So, marginal luxury is this idea where you buy a smaller price point thing, like a fancy coffee or a nice candle, to feel that sense of luxury without the commitment or cost of a truly expensive item. And premium economy or products like this are the perfect example of a marginally luxury product because airlines have essentially figured out how to monetize discomfort at scale. So they make regular economy deliberately uncomfortable, and then sell you slightly more legroom, maybe a free drink, like little upgrades that cost them almost nothing to provide, but it feels like a meaningful treat to you. And there's psychology here of like just a little bit more. And like a lot of these products will exploit this gap between what you can't afford and what feels unbearable. So like economy, regular economy feels unbearable, but you might not be able to afford that like $3,000 business class ticket. But you might be able to afford that $200 upgrade to premium economy. That upgrade feels reasonable by comparison. It's positioned as accessible indulgence rather than true luxury. And a lot of companies will capitalize this and they'll basically manufacture the problem to sell you the solution. I mean, airlines have systematically made their product worse over the past couple decades, shrinking seats, eliminating perks, charging for bags, charging for seat selections. And premium economy essentially exists in that gap that they deliberately created. So the airlines control both the problem, which is like really uncomfortable flying, and the solution, which is slightly less uncomfortable flying. And the margins are great for the airlines. And it's like kind of trapping you in this like psychological place where you're like, okay, I can afford this little upgrade to get this idea of luxury, even though it was not a problem before. And we see this model with all types of companies. If you think about streaming services that will offer like the ad-free tier, the ad-supported tier, the premium 4K tier, credit cards with like all their different types of credit cards, gym memberships that will have different tiers, even grocery stores, we're starting to see the tierification, hotels with like all those add-ons and different levels of rooms, softwares, etc. And so like, the formula is essentially the same for all this, which is create a degraded base experience, offer marginal improvements at inflated prices, and then position the middle tier as the reasonable choice. And companies have essentially learned that they can make more money by segmenting one product into multiple price points rather than just offering one good version. And so this has really led to a shift in our economy where we have essentially normalized paying extra to escape artificially created discomfort. And if you're interested in learning more about the products and policies that exploit our psychology and make things more expensive and worse in a lot of ways, I write about this in my newsletter. And if you're interested, the link is in my bio.
Where did America's affordability crisis come from? I think the natural answer is to point to the most recent inflation spike. As we were coming out of the pandemic, prices started to grow at a clip we haven't seen in 40 years. This peaks in the summer of 2022. We're able to get price growth down afterwards, but of course, prices themselves remain high. And here we are 6 years after the pandemic started, and the price of almost every good and service that we buy in our economy has increased. And our wages and income have not grown enough for us to feel like we've kept pace. That is the last chapter of a book you need to read cover to cover. There was absolutely an acceleration of prices over the last few years, especially coming out of the pandemic. There are certain goods and services for which the market that produces them has deep underlying issues that require now government intervention, like childcare, like healthcare. But the affordability crisis, it's a function of price and income. There are these severe acute pain points right now, but they're symptoms on the price side where the disease is coming from the wage and income side. Americans are not earning enough money, and this has been a problem for decades. I'm going to show you some figures kind of explaining why I think that this is a whole book and not the last chapter. My motivation in doing so is not to, I don't know, be that like, actually, it's not just prices, and just kind of explain to you what you don't know, but rather, we will never effectively design solutions if we do not correctly diagnose the problem. And there is a danger to ignoring the wage and income side, of just focusing on housing, on just focusing on supply of housing, on just focusing on the supply of housing in certain localities that have, environmental restrictions on certain building policies. That is, a myopic view at one of the symptoms when the larger problem is structural issues in our economy that have produced the affordability crisis we have now. And if we don't address them, they'll produce another one, some other manifestation, but it'll come back around again. So why does the United States have an affordability crisis? Because people don't earn enough money. And when I say they don't earn enough money, I'm saying that as a share of the economy, the compensation of workers has fallen since around 1970. So this series, which is from the Bureau of Economic Analysis that includes GDP, shows the share of our gross domestic income that goes to the compensation of employees. Okay, so let's start. The series begins in 1929, way down here, when the share of compensation falls below 50%. And I think that this is an obvious but necessary point to make. We never want our economy to look like 1929. It's not a good year to be compared to or alike in almost any way. So during the start of the Great Depression in 1929, compensation of employees falls below 50% as the U.S. experiences a minimum of 25%, but probably upwards of 35% unemployment. For the rest of the 1930s, it stabilizes at around 52%. Now, through the expansion of the war production boom and through the mid-century, it continues to rise, hits a peak, and then starting in 1970, kind of through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 20s, it falls down. And we are now, so when I say Americans have an affordability crisis, and that's a book you need to read cover to cover, here's the start of the book. We earn more, we earn more, we earn more, and we earn less and less and less till we get to 2024, when Americans take home as a share of total compensation as a share of the total economy, 51.9%, which is what we earned in the 30s. We are nearing a century low of how much money is going to workers. Now, that graph I just showed you is made up of two components: the cash that workers bring home and their non-cash fringe compensation. This is fringe compensation. You'll notice they follow two different patterns. So fringe compensation, I got to keep going back. Fringe compensation has just been rising as we add things like health insurance and retirement benefits to workers' paychecks, compensation, not paychecks. But we add health and retirement, and you can see it. And this is mainly health and retirement over time. Some would say it's health. Some would say it's more retirement. It's health. And it reaches around 10%, and then it's also fallen over the last couple of years. This includes some other things too, including taxes. But what's driving the growth over time and the shape of it is health and retirement, and really the spiraling healthcare costs that workers face. Some of you are probably savvy enough to pick up on a severe problem here, which is the number of people that have no fringe benefits. So the amount of compensation that Americans are bringing home is increasingly reliant on a compensation that not all workers get, like health and retirement at their job. But this is the real problem. This is just the amount that workers take home in cash. So not fringe, just the money that you take to the bank on your paycheck. It starts at around 50% of the economy, and then it just continually craters since around 1970. And we are where we are now, which is a low kind of Great Recession, and now just this incredible low in the amount of cash paid to workers. A lot of these bumps are recessions. But yeah, that's the problem. I mean, the affordability crisis for me is this trend of workers taking less money home. Now, conservatives fundamentally disagree with this point that Americans are earning even relatively less money compared to the size of the economy overall. And what they would point out is that line that I show you is compensation as a share of gross domestic income. It's a notoriously volatile series of gross domestic income because it's not net income, it's gross income. It includes expenses that people pay in our economy. So GDP is the value of all the things we buy. GDI, gross domestic income, is basically everything that we earned. But it's because it's gross as opposed to net, it includes things like depreciation. And so if you're looking at something that's a share of a total denominator, what's in the denominator can make a difference over time and move the share of the top relative to the bottom. That's a long way of saying that they would tell you that the reason why wage compensation looks like it's falling is because of other things going on in the series, like depreciation getting higher. What I would push back if they said that the income loss to workers is a function of other things going on in the series is that series and economic measurement affecting worker income has not affected corporate income. And for the last 4 years are the highest corporate income shares on record. And corporate income is unaffected by the rest of the series. And it is taking home, I mean, the highest corporate income we've seen for as long as we've recorded it have been the last 4 years. And that is not affected by the series choice or the denominator. So when workers make too little money in this comparison, it's because the series is goofy. But when companies make more money in this comparison, that's just different. So I take this comparison of labor share of income with a grain of salt because every data has its own caveats. But I think if you look at the diverging paths of worker income and corporate income, it paints a pretty clear picture of what has happened in the US over the past 70 years. That doesn't mean that we know how to make sense of it, that we know exactly what caused it, or we know exactly what to do about it. But we do know that the amount of money that workers bring home has been falling. And the affordability crisis is a function of that as much as it is housing over the last 2 years. We have to make a shift in our economy of how workers are paid. And I think that it makes the problem seem bigger, but of course, that invites a solution that is bolder and one that will address the problems we have. And yeah, affordability is much bigger than price when you remember that it's about income. And when it comes to incomes, we have work to do, work that needs doing.